Hi everyone, we're here for the first webinar about dark social. So this presentation I want to make is called Dark Social and the Challenges of Social Marketing. Just a quick presentation. My name is Hugo Monteiro. I'm Customer Success Officer at GetSocial, and I've been studying a lot of what dark social is and what just a quick second. Okay, so like I was saying, I've been writing a lot about dark social, and I just recently wrote an article about debunking the myths of dark social. So this is our first webinar. So if something doesn't go as well as planned, I hope you understand. So this presentation is mostly about how social media is changing. So what is happening is that probably I'll be safe to assume that every one of you knows at least one, two, if not all of these icons on the left. And you probably have them on your phone and you use them on a daily basis to communicate with your family, with your friends. And as this implies, communication is getting a lot more personal these days, at least on the digital side. So looking back at how spread this is, we can see that we have right now 5 billion users of either SMS or instant messaging. So almost everyone uses it. Everyone that has a cell phone uses it. So looking at the landscape of social media, we can see that social networks are really strong in numbers of users. We have Facebook on the lead, then you have YouTube, Instagram. But what I used to say is that social networks is where we are, where our online personas are based on. But how do we communicate? We use messaging apps. So what's been happening right now is that while taking some time to pick up Slack, we can see that messaging apps are overcoming in numbers of users traditional social networks. So messaging can be seen as the new social, just the next step on social media. And as you can see here, around the end of 2014, starting of 2015, the biggest 4 messaging apps just went over the biggest 4 social networking apps. And the problem is that social is difficult. And for example, from our research, it seems that just the last 4 years, there was $70 billion spent on just social ads. And we're not counting the cost with human resources, with promoting pages, whatever. So, and creating content, this is just the ads. So we can add a lot of money on top of this. But at the same time, while everyone jumped on social media, 59% of social marketers say they can't properly measure return on investment. So that's a disconnect here. A lot of money was invested, but not everyone, or at least just a minority, can say that they can justify that as expenditure. And what we believe is that the biggest problem here is people have wrong expectations about what to look at on social media. So in this example, I show 2 kinds of shares, 2 kinds of way people share. In one case, it's a public share, and I'm just saying, oh, I'm going to buy these running shoes, and you should buy a pair too. But the left example almost never happens. This is an illusion that something like this will happen. What usually happens is that people talk on private channels thinking, hey, I'm thinking about this as a present or for me or whatever, and people usually have these discussions with their family and friends on channels such as WhatsApp, as iMessage. So they just communicate with each other in small groups instead of just shouting to their social networks. And there's a big difference between these two, is that this creates a lack of information to deal with. So we have here public shares, what we can also call public social and private shares and private social. So in one case, it's very visible. For example, people use all the time social monitoring tools to have, for example, register how many times they were mentioned on social media, and that's great because you want to know if your brand is connecting with users, if people are talking about you, if you're top of mind on their interests. So, but the problem is that comparing in the overall scheme of things, these are quite rare. These just happen between 20 to 30% of all these kind of interactions, and they have low engagement. I see a lot of times even influencers with thousands or tens of thousands of followers to have really low engagement in platforms such as Twitter. They have a lot of tweets with no engagement at all, and but I tell you that it's easy to track. And one of the reasons I believe most people like to focus on this side of things is because it's easy to track, it's easy to measure, and easy to report. On the other hand, these private conversations I showed you before are hard to track, but they are more frequent. The engagement is higher. For example, did you know SMS, the text messages from our phones have an open rate of about 95%. So almost every time you send those kinds of messages, they are read because the people that receives it know that you're sending to them personally, and it's really well targeted, and they want to know what you have to say about them or to them. So private shares overall are more in, people generate more engagement for them, but they are hard to track, so people don't like to focus on that. Just to compare usage, I had to crunch some numbers about Facebook and WhatsApp, because this information I have here is not readily available. That if you can see, the average user shares about 6.4 items. Items can be a post, can be an image, whatever, per day. And at the same time, the average WhatsApp user sends 55 messages. So you can imagine that of course, people spend a lot of time on Facebook, but they are not communicating. They're just collecting information about what's happening with their social circles. But on WhatsApp, they are talking a lot with other people, and they can be talking about your brand or talking about your offers. So that's why we like to call these private channels, call them dark social. It's communication happening, this talk between people, this word of mouth is happening on private channels called dark social. And we like to compare it to an iceberg because, as they say, you usually can see just a small part of the iceberg, around 10%. And that's, if you're focusing just on public social, on these kind of interactions here, you're just seeing the tip of the iceberg. You need to actually understand the whole picture to make proper decisions. And why did this problem happen? Because software such as Google Analytics can't track properly this kind of information. And if you ever used Google Analytics, you are acquainted with this image showing the channels from which the traffic came to your website. And the problem is that with dark social is that instead of being attributed to social here, they simply throw the traffic on direct, because Google Analytics don't actually know where the traffic came from. So they just throw it to direct channel. What this causes basically is that if you're looking at the wrong thing, you're tracking the wrong metrics, you won't be able to justify your expenditure. You won't be able to see the correct return on investment. And why this happens? Well, mainly because mobile devices are on the rise. In the last 5 years, if I'm correct, we went from something like 4 to 5% of all internet traffic was mobile to being around 50% last year. So it was a massive increase. And it's the main reason why things like dark social are happening and making it harder for marketers, social marketers, to understand what's happening and how to justify their campaigns and if things are working at all. So these are the main reasons why dark social is happening. And this graph, it's interesting because it came from a case study we did last year with a publisher, with a British publisher, which before they had Get Social installed, they thought that, and this here, it's called copy paste tracking. It's a feature we have on with Get Social software that allows you to track dark social. So before they installed this feature, they thought that their social traffic was around between 5 to 3%. So if you're an audience developer, you'll think, okay, 5 to 3%, maybe all this time, all this effort we're spending building social profiles, maybe that's for nothing, because it's a really, it doesn't pay off at all. But the problem is that most of their traffic was coming through dark social and they didn't know about it. So what you can see here, after they used Get Social, they will learn that their social traffic is actually from 41% to 55. It went from 41 to 52% on the third month. And looking at this is not a minor channel. It's their most important channel. And the problem here is how this influences decision making. So if they used this data to drive their decision making, they say, okay, social doesn't matter to us. Let's forget about it. Just do something, but don't focus too much on it. They will lose a lot of traffic because that's their main channel, and disregarding it will have been a catastrophe for their results. So what we usually like to say about it is that while you can track stuff like followers, reach, and likes, which is important if you want to know how people assess your brand, to understand if people are interacting, if they like your brand, to know overall metrics about branding, it's okay to have that. But what we say is that you shouldn't have just that. That is important, but it's not the whole picture. So like about 2 years ago, Brad Smallwood, which is Facebook's vice president of measurement and insights, told that they will be not giving so much highlight to some metrics because they call it shiny metrics, stuff like shares and likes. And they said that while they are interesting, they couldn't correlate really well with business results. So the problem here is that people were like how many likes are we getting? What's our reach, etc. But the problem was that was not driving results. They were not driving sales, revenue, etc. What we like to say is you can track this, but also track private metrics. For example, you of course you unless you have just a Facebook page or you are a YouTube influencer, you should be looking at, are my social pages driving traffic to the website? Are people actually seeing the stuff I publish and then going to the website? Are these working together, or they're just looking at my stuff, liking, and just not buying or interacting with anything? Because if you are an e-commerce business, or if you are a publisher, of course you want people to go to your website, otherwise you can't monetize that traffic. The second thing is intent. Are people sharing your content and your product? Because since most of the shares are dark social, what you want to know is that if people are talking about you and your products, it means they are interested in them, and potentially they are showing your offer to other people. For example, I can give you a real clear example. This summer, I'm going on a trip with some friends, and to actually be able to see where we're going to stay, we're doing some searches on Airbnb and TripAdvisor, and of course we shared a lot of links. Just, oh, look at this place. This one is cheaper. This one is more expensive, but it's more good looking. And all these shares, of course, are indications of intent. We are looking to a place to stay. So if TripAdvisor and Airbnb want to be smart about it, if they see people sharing their content, they should be tracking and recommending stuff based on that. And what's the end goal for this? Is our conversions. Are my traffic generating loyal readers? Are generating good leads? Are generating sales? So the last thing you want to know are conversions. And Dark Social helps to actually have a much more clear picture about all of this. So how do we track Dark Social? In the case of Get Social, and this is an example from one of our clients, which is Adobe, we have Get Social installed on their CMO website, which is a website about marketing, and they have both our copy-paste tracking and our share buttons, what's happening here is that when you enter this URL here, what's happening is that we automatically generate this URL fragment that allow us to know when someone copies and pastes this to another place, which happens a lot of times. I'll show you that just next. We'll know where they did it and when that happens and how many visits that generated. We are able to know if someone shares this, how many visits came through that particular share. So this is one of our dashboards. These are anonymized data from one of our clients, and in this case, it's not CMO, it's another one. It has almost 3 million visitors, and the interesting thing about this is the number of copy-paste shares or dark social shares they have, which is 91%. So what I see a lot of times articles saying one of the ways to actually measure dark social or avoid dark social is to put some social buttons on your content. But from our experience, that's not the case at all, because only about 8 to 9% in the particular case of this client, of course, but around 8% are used of the shares are made on social buttons. So we see the numbers range a bit. It's highly dependent on the industry and the category of the website, but you'll see numbers here around, it's always above 60, but you'll see around 70 to 80% of shares are copy paste. And in this case, they have a lot of mobile traffic. If you have a lot of mobile traffic, the dark social will be a bigger problem for you. We see that every time. So these are some of the clients of our clients that are using us. We have Adobe, Sky, WWF, Liquor, which is the biggest cocktail website about cocktails in the world, and we have Imprensa, which is a publisher we are doing and planning to do at the end of this year, a project financed by Google Digital News Initiative, which will be something really interesting about dark social and influencers. So after this presentation, I hope it was informational enough. I usually recommend a follow-up, which is if you want to know more about this, or if you want to actually see on your website, is dark social a problem for me? How much of my traffic is dark social? I recommend one of two things. So if you work on a big company and have a large website where you have to discuss things with your IT department and you can't put our code right away, I suggest scheduling a demo where we can show you a customized demo for your case. You can just send an email to my colleague Mo at getsocial.io, and we'll get a customized demo based on your use case. If you have a smaller website, and GetSocial is really easy to install, it's as hard or as easy as Google Analytics. You just have to install a small snippet of code in the head section of your pages. You can simply start a 14-day free trial, and after you install it, it will be really interesting to do a demo after that, because you'll be able to do them with your real data, and we'll be able to analyze the data with you and tell you, okay, we have this much insight, you got this much dark social going on in our website, and you should do this to actually leverage this information. So it could be interesting doing the demo, doing the trial, and then the demo to get a demo with live information from the website. So we're going to the Q&A. So if you have any questions, I see that there's a question here already. I see this question from Bradley Thompson. I recently heard the term dark traffic. Is this related to dark social? So dark traffic and dark social usually are people speak about it, about both terms as the same thing. I believe they are not exactly the same. They are related, they're not the same thing. I'm actually doing a presentation that I'm going to be publishing in about 2 weeks about this matter, to explain and help people consolidate this kind of knowledge and make things easier. Because just a couple of weeks ago, I was doing a lot of research about it, and it was really complicated. This is not a really easy task to understand. I'm just going to share it really quick with you, some information about what is direct traffic. I have this quick presentation which aims to explain people what's going on. So what is direct traffic, and dark social? So you probably have, all of you have seen this if you worked with Google Analytics. There's this view which is top channels and allows you to see the channels that your traffic is attributed to. So we have here this troublemaker, which is direct traffic. So what is, to start explaining which is dark social and dark traffic, I usually start by explaining what is direct traffic. So the quick answer for this is that when someone types an URL in your website, for example, if I wrote getsocial.io and I went to the website, that will be direct traffic. And that would be awesome if the story ended at this part. But the problem is that if you look at this channel here, it will show you every time people actually type your URL, but also a lot more. So I found this great image on the internet that showed all the stuff that went into the direct traffic bucket. So you're able to see here, I just made this presentation. This is a draft. A designer haven't touched this, so excuse me for the not so great presentation, but you're able to see direct traffic as a part of the overall traffic, and the sources are these. So you have typed URL, which I mentioned earlier about someone typing and going to your website. You also have going from a HTTPS to a HTTP website. So if you go from a secure website like Facebook, Google, etc., to a non-secure website. And I would recommend, if you're still using an HTTP website, to move to HTTPS, because not only Google is now a ranking criteria for Google, it also makes you lose a lot of data. When someone goes from a secure to your website, you lose a lot of data about traffic. So I recommend everyone to go to HTTPS in time. Of course, it's not very urgent, but you should think about it. So I'm not entirely sure about this one, but it seems some SEO experts believe that some search traffic is thrown into the direct traffic bucket. I can't assure you this is true, but because SEO is not my area of expertise, but it seems that might happen. You also have email links, which also don't make sense to be in direct traffic, because as you can see, there's a channel for email and it should be there. There's also bookmarks, when you simply save a link for later, and that makes sense to be direct traffic because it's basically doing this but with a button, so it seems fine. QR codes, it's a different thing altogether, because you're going from a physical medium to a digital medium. So you're taking a picture of a QR code and you're going from one place to another. In my opinion, this should be referral traffic and not direct traffic. Session refresh is a technicality related to how Google Analytics operates. So if you're having a session that lasts if you're more than 30 minutes on a website, or if you go from one day to another, just on the strike of midnight, it refreshes your session. It could be direct traffic, but it shouldn't be too relevant, because it's only a really tiny fraction of traffic for all websites. It shouldn't be really important. A chat link, it's social, because people are, like I explained before, people are chatting on instant messaging apps, so this should belong on social. And we have copy-paste URL, so it can be several things. It can be social and it can be referral. And incognito mode is everything goes. We have no idea what's going on. It can be like almost anything here. So I just added this to say that actually, if you want to be here, if you look at these sources and direct traffic, only these, only type URLs, bookmarks, and probably session refresh belongs here. The other ones are dark traffic. So this is the relation between direct traffic and dark traffic. This to explain what is dark traffic. And if you want to sum it up, if someone asks you what is dark traffic, you can say it's traffic on the that is attributed to the direct channel that don't belong there. So it's poorly attributed traffic. And what is dark social? Dark social this is more, if you look at this is my personal opinion from studying dark social for almost a year. So dark social is all dark traffic that has a social component to it, and it's the most important of them both, because dark traffic is a technicality, is something on your analytic software that went wrong. And dark social is actually interactions, it's actually word of mouth between your potential clients. So this is for me the easy definition for dark traffic. Sorry, in this case, for dark social. Dark social is dark traffic resulting from social actions. I don't know if you have any more questions that you want to make about any of the topics I presented earlier. Okay, so let's wrap this up. It was great having you with us. It was our first webinar, and I hope it shed some light into what dark traffic, dark social actually are and how they can help you. So have a great time, and I expect to, and I'll be sending this presentation and also this second one to you on an email tomorrow. So it was great having you here. Bye.